In the abyss of this world, there is a certain something called the Shaddoll core, which gives birth to shadows that absorb light. The Shaddoll. El Shaddoll construct uses these shadow strings to control the manifested shadows, and with this to extend its influence and power. So Shaddoll is an archetype comprised primarily of dark monsters that debuted in Duelist Alliance. Their focus is the fusion summon of the more powerful El Shaddoll monsters, which restrict or punish special summons. The main deck Shaddoll monsters all have flip effects that focus on searching and field advantage, as well as a secondary effect that focuses on regaining advantage whenever they are sent to the graveyard by a card effect. The word Shaddoll is a portmanteau of shadow and doll. The Shaddoll cards appear to be darker puppet versions of cards from other archetypes, including some from the dual terminal world, with their threads coming from the back of El Shaddoll construct. So then let's go for the cards then, shall we? First up, El Shaddoll Anoitalis. This card's Japanese name is a portmanteau of the word anomaly and the name Lilith, which is the name of the female demon or spirit from Jewish mythology. This monster shares its attribute attack and defense and level with Necros of Trishula, and is coincidentally covered in ice. The artwork of Void Vanishment depicts El Shaddoll Shekhinaga and Infernoid Defiati merging to form this monster. The apparent destruction of this monster is depicted in the artwork of Void Purification. El Shaddoll Construct. Now this monster appears to be the source or controller of the dark strings seen controlling the other Shaddoll monsters. El Shaddoll Winda and various other monsters also appear in this card's artwork. This monster is part of two other Shaddoll fusion monsters, El Shaddoll Shekhinaga and El Shaddoll Anoitalis. This card's Japanese name, El Shaddoll Nephilim, is named for the Nephilim of Hebrew myth. These creatures were a race of giants who inhabited merchants. Another interpretation of the Nephilim is those who cause the others to fall down. In this case, it could refer to the strings that come from this monster that seems to corrupt previous existing monsters. This card's name may be a reference to El Shaddai, one of the Judaic names of God. This supports the idea of this being the Shaddoll boss monster, and as seen by this card's artwork, this monster appears to be massive in size as El Shaddoll Winda looks small in comparison. The artwork of El Shaddoll Shekhinaga reinforces this fact, as it can be seen that it is equal size to Apocryphort Towers, which is colossal in size itself. This fits given the Nephilim in mythology were a race of giants. Did you know this is the second fusion monster to become forbidden after Thousand Eyes Restrict, and the first Shaddoll monster to become forbidden? It is also one of the first two Shaddoll monsters to become limited, the other being El Shaddoll Winda. Next up, El Shaddoll Grista. Now this monster's head matches the artwork of Shaddoll Core, making it probable that this form is what became of Cairn Gorgon Illuminescent Knight, and by extension the Gem Knights. This is supported by the card being named Grista, a word play on Gem Knight Crystal. Additionally, this card shares the exact same attack and defense values as both Kerrigorgon and Crystal. This is the first Rock-type Fire fusion monster. The first Rock-type Fire monster belongs to KN, the Master Magma Blacksmith. El Shaddoll Winda appears in this card's artwork, and this monster appears in the artwork of Sacrifice. Each of this monster's joints is one of the coloured spheres represented in the Quillfort, Infernoid and Zephra monster arts. Next up, El Shaddoll Shekhinaga. So this card's name comes from Shekinah and Naga. This monster is El Shaddoll Construct merged with Apocryphort Towers, with which it shares its attribute, type and level, and also has the inverse attack and defense of it. Due to the effects of Towers making it unaffected by spell and traps, it is very difficult for it to be fused with El Shaddoll Construct. The fusion has resulted in some serious changes to the form of Construct. Her body has now taken on the black-white colour scheme of Towers, and a white angelic wing has sprouted from her right sleeve, matching the wings forming the strut on the right leg of Towers. This is true for the black demonic wing on the opposite side as well, though it is mostly obscured. While the strings originally sprouted from the back of Construct, they now appear to bind her in place and no longer spread out from the monster. This quite possibly means that in this form, Construct no longer has any control over the other Shaddolls. Two golden snake-like objects coil around the now immobilized Construct. These snakes may have originated from the staff of Constella Razhuag, or Evil Swarm Kerikion. and were found previously coiled around Shaddoll Squamata. Then Yugioh, Darkness of the Yangzing, and finally Yazi, Evil of the Yangzing. And this monster's transformation into El Shaddoll Anoitalis is depicted in the art of Void Banishment. Next up, El Shaddoll Wendigo. So this monster is the Shaddoll counterpart of Ritual Beast Ulti Petalfin. Its transformation can be seen in the artwork of Ritual Beast Ambush. And Wendigo also appears in Zephra Path, being transformed by Oracle of Zephra into Ritual Beast Tamer Zephra Wendy. Now, a Wendigo is a demonic half-beast creature appearing in the legends of the Alquian peoples along the Atlantic coast and Great Lakes region of both the United States and Canada. Or, for the cool kids, if you played Until Dawn, you may know the Wendigos from there. However, this Wendigo is much prettier than those ones. Next up, El Shaddoll Winda. Now, this monster is composed of puppet-like versions of Winda, Priestess of Gusto, and Palau, Wind of the Yangzing. This monster has similarities to Daigusto Guldos. Both monsters have Winda, Priestess of Gusto as the rider of a bird-like beast. Both monsters share the same attack, level, and defense. As well, this monster appears in the artworks of El Shaddoll Construct, Shaddoll Core, and El Shaddoll Grista. The puppet-like version of Pualo also appears in the artwork of Sinister Shadow Games, while the puppet-like version of Winda appears in the artwork of El Shaddoll Fusion and Nef Shaddoll Fusion. The jewel in the chest of Caringorgon, Illuminescent Knight, appears in the staff of the puppet version of Winda. And on October 1st, 2014, in the OCG, this card and El Shaddoll Construct became the first fusion monsters to be limited since Thousand Eyes Restrict in September 2005. They were also the first Shaddoll monsters to be limited. Shaddoll Beast. So this monster is the Shaddoll counterpart of Naturia Beast. Shaddoll Dragon. Swanee, Fire of the Yangzing, is a counterpart of this card, and this monster appears in the artwork of Sinister Shadow Games and Ritual Beast Ambush. Shaddoll Falco. So this monster is the Shaddoll counterpart of Gusto Falco. This card is the first tuner monster to also be a flip effect monster, and this monster appears in the artworks of Ritual Beast Ambush. This monster can be assumed to be a puppet copy or revived body of Gusto Falco, as Gusto Falco had died protecting Kamui, Hope of Gusto. Next up, Shaddoll Hedgehog. So this monster is the Shaddoll version of Neo Flamvel Hedgehog. Shaddoll Falco is a tuner monster like its regular counterpart, Gusto Falco. Oddly, this card is not a tuner monster despite Neo Flamvel Hedgehog being one. The name of this monster might be a pun on the Sega character Shadow the Hedgehog. That's pretty cool. And this monster appears in the artwork of Ritual Beast Ambush. Next up, Shaddoll Squamata. So this card is Satella Knight Unuka Lahai, or at least it's its armor transfigured into a Shaddoll after the events depicted in the artwork of Curse of the Shadow Prison. Both cards have the same attack, defense, and level, as well as a similar effect on sending cards from their respective archetypes to the grave. And this card's English name comes from the taxonomic classification Squamata, the order of reptiles which comprises all snakes and lizards. Squamata has a golden snake-like object entity coiled around its body. This may have been from Rasselhag's staff and is featured in the artwork of Curse of the Shadow Prison, Yugioh, Darkness of the Yangzing, Yangzing Brutality, El Shaddoll Shekhinaga, and Shaddoll Zephra. Next up, Shaddoll Zephra Core. So this is the first Shaddoll Pendulum monster, and this is the Zephra version of Shaddoll Core, sharing the same attribute and defense. According to the dual terminal lore, the fusion core from the corpse of Gemnite Crystal overloaded and corrupted, thus becoming Charigorgon Illuminescent Knight, and creating the Shaddoll Core. This explains why this monster shares many physical resemblances with Crystal, including its type. This card has the same multicolored sphere and zigzag pattern as Apocryphort Towers and Infernoid Onuchu, and this monster appears in the artwork of Chosen of Zephra. Next up, Shaddoll Zephinaga. So this monster is the Zephra version of Evil Swarm Karakion. However, this monster's level attack and defense and type more closely match Constella Rasselhag, Karakion's original form. This card is named after the Naga, a deity taking the form of a very great snake. This connects to the fact that Rasselhag is based on the Ophiuchus, the Serpent Bearer, and this monster appears in the artwork of Chosen of Zephra. Finally, the support spells. Shaddoll Fusion. Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree. Pilka, Descendant of Gusto. The Devastated Trunk of the Notorious Sacred Tree, and the puppet version of Winda, Priestess of Gusto, that is part of Shaddoll Winda, appear in this card's artwork. The base part of the Japanese name roughly translates to contact with the embodiment of a god. Shaddoll Fusion. Quillthorpe Scout appears in this card's artwork, and the rider of Shaddoll Winda, who appears to be bound to the canisters seen on the body of the Infernoid Shjet. This is the first equipped spell card that can perform a fusion summon, and this card's attribute ability and its Quillthorpe affiliated artwork might suggest that the Shaddolls are tapping into the power of the Quillthorpes to change their attributes, since the Quillthorpes Tree of Death absorb the Gem Knight's orb seen in Sacrifice, which in turn may represent all the different elements the Gem Knights possess. Shaddoll Core. Shaddoll Winda appears in this card's artwork, and the object Shaddoll Root is emerging from what appears to be the head of Carigorgon, a luminescent knight. This card's art also resembles that of Infestation, Infection, implying a connection between the Shaddoll archetype and the E-Swarm virus. And finally, Shaddoll Fusion. This card shares many similarities with Gem Knight Fusion, as well as being an archetype-specific fusion card. Black pearls and black gemstones are visible surrounding the two monsters. And with that, guys, that is a very long episode. Done. I butchered a lot of names in this episode. I'm really sorry, but please leave a like. Tell me what your favorite Shaddoll monster is. It's really interesting, to be honest with you, how they're like corrupted versions of other archetypes all like merged to one. And it's awesome. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Catch you later.